What is going on, brothers? No strategy here. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you enjoy it. And we are back with another video today. In this video, I'll be going over the German Empire in Codex entry section 5, the world. This is going to be the 4th codex in the world out of 13. This is the German Empire. Let's listen to the codex and we'll get straight into the information about it in World War I.
Germany, and especially Kaiser Wilhelm II, dreamed of a greater colonial empire and a greater German hegemony in the concert of Europe. A big concern for Germany was the expansion of the Russian railway system. In 1914, German Chancellor von Bethmann-Hollweg stated that within 3 years, Russia would be able to mobilize troops so quickly that the German advantage in technology would not be able to overcome the Russian advantage in manpower. To win the war, they had to act quickly. What Germany feared was a war on 2 fronts, so their battle plan was to defeat France and then focus the entire German military might on the Russian Empire.
Ooh, that's what they thought. They thought. Now, let's get into this. So, this is the German Empire. Let's look. What do people ask? What kind of government did Germany have before World War I? Well, the political system in Germany during World War I was a federal monarchy. There were many states in Germany, all united under the leadership of the German Kaiser. During the war, the reigning Kaiser, Kaiser Wilhelm II, was not simply a figurehead monarch. Instead, he truly ruled the country. What did Kaiser do? Kaiser Wilhelm II played a large role in causing World War I to happen, but he had very little real role in the war once it began. Kaiser Wilhelm I was the monarch of Germany. The title Kaiser comes from the Latin Caesar. So instead of Caesar Wilhelm, in German it's Kaiser. Wilhelm II was the emperor of Germany from 1888 until he was forced to abdicate in 1918. Who was Kaiser Wilhelm II? Well, Kaiser Wilhelm II, or William II, German for Frederick Wilhelm Victor Albrecht von Beethoven, Frederick William Victor Albert of Prussia, January 27th, 1859 to June 4th, 1941, was the last German emperor, Kaiser, and king of Prussia, ruling the German Empire and the Kingdom of Prussia from June 15th, 1888 to November 9th, 1918. What countries bordered the German Empire in 1914? It bordered the north by the North Sea, Denmark and the Baltic Sea on the east by Poland and the Kazakh Republic, on the south by Austria and Switzerland, and on the west by France, Luxembourg, Belgium, Wallonia, and the Netherlands. Now let's get into what did German Empire do during World War I. So the German Empire was a historical German nation state that existed from the unification of Germany in 1871 to the abdication of Kaiser Wilhelm II in November 1918, when Germany became a federal republic. The German Empire consisted of 26 constituent territories, with most being ruled by royal families. This included 4 kingdoms, 6 grand duchies, 5 duchies, 7 principalities, 3 free Hanseatic cities, and 1 imperial territory. Although the Kingdom of Prussia contained most of the empire's population and territory, it played a lesser role. As Dyer 2005 points out, Prussia's political and cultural influence had diminished considerably by the 1890s. Now over here, I am not showing you the national anthem again. No. God with us, that's their motto. But I am not showing you. This is the German Reich, Deutsches Reich, from 1871 to 1918, the coat of arms and the German flag. This is the Germany on the eve of World War I. This was all of them up here, that green area. States of the German Empire, Prussia shown in blue. Prussia was all of this big blue area right here. I don't know about, you see that little dark blue area right there? That's blue. Would that count? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see right here. We saw the background. Let's read a little bit more about the background. Germany became a great power, boasting a rapidly growing rail network, the world's strongest country, and a fast-growing industrial base. In less than a decade, its navy became a second only to Britain's Royal Navy. When the Great Crisis of 1914 arrived, the German Empire had only one ally, Austria-Hungary. They were later joined by the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria to form the Central Powers, or Quadruple Alliance. So Bulgaria, Ottoman Empire, Austria-Hungary, and German Empire were the Central Powers, which also called them the Quadruple Alliance. In the First World War, German plans to capture Paris quickly in autumn 1914 failed, and the war on the Western Front became a stalemate. The Allied naval blockade caused severe shortages of food. Germany was repeatedly forced to send troops to bolster Austria and Turkey on other fronts. However, Germany had great successes on the Eastern Front. It occupied large eastern territories following the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. German declaration of unrestricted submarine warfare in early 1917 was designed to strangle the British. It failed because the use of a transatlantic convoy system. But the declaration, along with the Zimmermann telegram, did bring the United States into the war. Meanwhile, German civilians and soldiers had become war-weary and radicalized by the Russian Revolution. The High Command under Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff increasingly controlled the country as they gambled on one last offensive in spring 1918. Before the Americans could arrive in force using large numbers of troops, aeroplanes, and artillery withdrawn from the Eastern Front, this failed, and by October the armies were in retreat. Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire had collapsed. Bulgaria had surrendered, and the German people had lost faith in their political system. The empire collapsed on the November 1918 revolution as the emperor and all ruling monarchs abdicated and the republic took over. Let's go to the war. World War I. Origins. Also see history of Germany during World War I. Origins. Following the assassination of the Austro-Hungarian Archduke of Austria Este Franz Ferdinand by Gavrilo Princip, which we talked about yesterday, in whatever we talked about yesterday. I forgot what we talked about, but we were talking about a different country, which the Austro-Hungary. That's what we talked about yesterday. We talked about it when Gavrilo Princip had a pistol, shot Franz Ferdinand when he made a wrong turn down the street, and he was killed. A Bosnian Serb, the Kaiser offered Emperor Franz Joseph full support for the Austro-Hungarian plans to invade the Kingdom of Serbia, which Austria-Hungary blamed for the assassination. This unconditional support of Austria-Hungary was called a blank check by historians, including German Fritz Fischer. Subsequent interpretation, for example, the Versailles Peace Conference, was that this blank check licensed Austro-Hungarian aggression regardless of the diplomatic consequences, and thus Germany bore responsibility for starting the war, or at least provoking a wilder conflict. Germany began the war by targeting a chief rival, France. Germany saw France as its principal danger on the European continent, as it could mobilize much faster than Russia, and bordered Germany's industrial core in the Rhineland. Unlike Britain and Russia, the French entered the war mainly for revenge against Germany, in particular for France's loss of Alsace-Lorraine to Germany in 1871. The German High Command knew that France would muster its forces to go into Alsace-Lorraine. Aside from the very unofficial September program, the Germans never stated a clear list of goals, and they wanted out of the war. This was the Western Front. This is a picture of the Western Front. These German soldiers with some spikes on their helmet. He's carrying a bag. There's a woman right here. I don't know what this thing is. It looks like a little dog. I have no idea what this is. Looks like a Molotov. I have no idea. But that's the mobilization in 1914. The Western Front. I'm not going to read this entire thing, but Germany did not want to risk lengthy battles along the Franco-German border. Instead of adopted the Schlieffen Plan, a military strategy designed to cripple France by invading Belgium and Luxembourg, sweeping down towards Paris and encircling the crushing French forces along the Franco-German border in a quick victory. After defeating France, Germany would turn back the attack to Russia. The aftermath of the First Battle of the Marne was held a long stalemate between the German army and Allies dug in trench warfare. On the Eastern Front, while the Western Front was in stalemate for the German army, the Eastern Front eventually proved to be a great success. Despite initial setbacks due to the unexpectedly rapid mobilization of the Russian army, which resulted in Russian invasion of East Prussia and Austrian Galicia, the badly organized and supplied Russian army faltered, and the German and Austro-Hungarian armies thereafter steadily advanced eastward. The Germans benefited from the political instability in Russia and its population's desire to end the war. In 1917, the German government allowed Russia's communist Bolshevik leader Vladimir Lenin to travel through Germany from Switzerland to Russia. Germany believed that if Lenin could create further political unrest, Russia could no longer be able to continue with this war with Germany, allowing the German army to focus on the Western Front. So, right here, the front line at the time of ceasefire at the end of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. This was Ukraine. Ukraine is in Russia. This is all Russia over here. Rusland. This is the Deutschland. German. This is Serbia. I think this is all like German words. So this is Deutschland, Poland, Austria, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Albania, Greekland. I don't know what these two are. The colonies. Let's talk about the colonies. Germany quickly lost almost all of its colonies. However, in German East Africa, an impressive guerrilla campaign was waged to the colonial army leader there, General Paul Emil von Lettow-Vorbeck. Using Germans and native Askaris, Lettow-Vorbeck launched multiple guerrilla raids against British forces in Kenya and Rhodesia. He also invaded Portuguese Mozambique to gain his forces supplies and to pick up more Askari recruits. His force was still active at war's end. And before I go down to 1918, I'm going to go all the way to the top, and I'm going to show you someone that we should have went over earlier, but I don't know why I didn't. Damn, this is a lot. Alright, so talk about Kaiser Wilhelm II. I just want to go see him. Kaiser Wilhelm II, right here. He was the last German emperor and king of Prussia, ruling the German Empire in the Kingdom of Prussia from June 15, 1888 to November 9, 1918. He was the eldest grandchild of the British Queen Victoria and related to many monarchs and princes in Europe. Crowned in 1888, he dismissed the Chancellor Otto von Bismarck in 1890. They launched Germany on a bellicose new course in foreign affairs that culminated in his support for Austria-Hungary in the crisis of July 1914 that led in a matter of days to the First World War. Bombastic and impetuous, he sometimes made tactless pronouncements on sensitive topics without consulting his ministers, culminating in a disastrous Daily Telegraph interview in 1908 that cost him most of his influence. His leading generals, Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff, dictated policy during the First World War and little regarded the civilian government. An ineffective wartime leader, he lost the support of the army, abdicated in November 1918, and fled his exile to the Netherlands. This is Wilhelm II. He had a lot of badges. He had these, I don't know what these things are called, I forgot. 2 medals. A lot of medals, but I don't know what these 2 stars are. Some down here. And that is Wilhelm II. That's all I want to talk about. That he was an important guy in the beginning of the war. Now let's talk about 1918. Defeating Russia in 1917 enabled Germany to transfer hundreds of thousands of combat troops from the east to the western front and making a numerical advantage over the Allies. By restraining these soldiers in the new stormtrooper tactics, Germans expected to unfreeze the battlefield and win a decisive victory before the army of the United States, which had now entered the war inside of Britain and France. Arrived in strength, however, the repeated German offensives in the autumn of 1917 and spring of 1918 also failed. As the Allies fell back and regrouped, the Germans lacked the reserves needed to consolidate their gains. Meanwhile, soldiers had become radicalized by the Russian Revolution and were less willing to continue fighting. The war effort sparked civil unrest in Germany, while the troops who had been constantly on the field without relief, grew exhausted and lost all hope of victory. In the summer of 1918, the Americans arriving in the rate of 10,000 a day, and the German reserves spent. It was only a matter of time before multiple Allied offensives destroyed the German army. This is the home front. The concept of total war meant that supplies had to be redirected towards the armed forces, with German commerce being stopped by the Allied naval blockade. German civilians were forced to live in increasingly meager conditions. First, food prices were controlled and rationings was introduced. During the war, about 750,000 German civilians died from malnutrition. They were not fed. 750,000 German civilians, that's 75% out of a million, were died because they were too hungry. Towards the end of the war, conditions deteriorated rapidly on the home front, with severe food shortages reported in all urban areas. The causes included the transfer of many farmers and food workers into the military, combined with the overburdened railway system, shortages of coal, and the British blockade. The winter of 1916 to 1917 was known as the turnip winter, because the people had survived on a vegetable more commonly reserved for livestock as a substitute for potatoes and meat, which were increasingly scarce. Thousands of soup kitchens were opened to feed the hungry, who grumbled that farmers were keeping the food for themselves. Even the army had to cut soldiers' rations. The morale of both civilians and soldiers continued to sink. Revolt and demise. Many Germans wanted an end to the war, and increasing numbers began to associate with the political left, such as the Social Democratic Party, and the more radical Independent Social Democratic Party, which demanded to end the war. The entry of the United States into the war in April 1917 changed the long-run balance of power in favor of the Ally. The end of October 1918 in Kiel, the northern Germany, saw the beginning of the German Revolution of 1918 and 1919. Units of the German Navy refused to set sail for a last large-scale operation in the war, which they saw good at lost. Initiating the uprising. On November 3rd, the revolt spread other cities and states of the country, in many of which workers' and soldiers' councils were established. Meanwhile, Hindenburg and the senior generals lost confidence in the Kaiser and his government. Bulgaria signed the Armistice of Solun on September 29, 1918. The Ottoman Empire signed the Armistice of Mudros on October 30th, 1918. Between October 24th and November 3rd, 1918, Italy defeated Austria-Hungary in the Battle of Vittorio Veneto, which forced Austria-Hungary to sign the Armistice of Villagiusti on November 3rd, 1918. So, in November 1918, with internal revolution, the Allies advancing towards Germany on the Western Front, Austria-Hungary falling apart from multiple ethnic tensions, its other allies allied the war and pressure of the German High Command, the Kaiser and all German ruling princes abdicated. On November 9th, the Social Democratic Philipp Scheidemann proclaimed the Republic. The new government, led by German Social Democrats, called for the receipt of the Armistice on November 11th. It was succeeded by the Weimar Republic. Those who opposed, including disaffected veterans, joined a diverse set of paramilitary and underground political groups, such as the Freikorps and the Organization Council and the Communists. This was their legacy. The defeat and aftermath of the First World War and the penalties imposed of the Treaty of Versailles shaped the positive memory of the empire, especially among Germans who distrusted and despised the Weimar Republic. Conservatives, liberals, socialists, nationalists, Catholics, and Protestants all had their own interpretations, which led to fractious political and social climate in Germany in the aftermath of the empire's collapse. That zoom in was crazy. This was the war flag on German Empire. In 1956, Iron Cross was reintroduced as a symbol of Bundeswehr, the modern German armed forces. That was the background for World War I. They were everywhere. They were in domestic affairs. They were all in Europe. Who's this guy? This is Frederick III, Emperor for only 99 days. Okay. But, see, I'm just doing videos on World War One. I'm not doing videos on the entire background of German Empire. I'm just doing the World War One background. And I'm pretty sure we went over it. Let me see. Let me double check it. Yep. We went over everything. So that's the end of this video. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this background that you know about now about the German Empire during World War One. So like always, stay healthy, stay sexy, and I'll see you guys in my next video.